So what is it about luxury that really gets me excited? Could be the smell, the leather, the premium audio, or even the spunk behind the wheel. Well, in this case, it could be all three. Hey, welcome to this edition of Road Warrior. I'm your host, Grant Roberson. Now behind me is the 2018 Lexus GS350 F Sport Edition. First thing you'll notice with the GS350 is its split personality. First off, from the side, looks like a standard luxury sedan. Really low-key, mellow when it comes to design. No chiseling, no hard edges, really tight lines with just a little bit of flare out here at the back end. But that front truly adds the aggressive side, the guerrilla warfare that takes this vehicle to the next level, really when it comes to stance, aggressiveness, and definitely sport. Before we swing around to the good old guerrilla warfare, one thing to talk about is the overall size of this vehicle, because after all, you do want luxury and the ability to, well, fill it on the inside, specifically when it comes to legroom and stretching out. Now, when it comes to wheelbase, overall numbers 112 inches, overall length 192 inches. Good numbers that really creep it way up into the mid-size segment. Now, as for width, fairly wide at just over 6 feet and just under 5 feet tall. Now, interestingly, the overall width here at the back end when it comes to tread width is about a ½ an inch wider. Really not pronounced, but you can see it with a little bit of flare when you're looking at it from the back side. Lastly is ground clearance with this vehicle snug in the road at around about 5.1 inches. Now, diving into the guerrilla warfare, there's a lot of things going on up here. Now, first off, on most vehicles, right about here, this is going to stop, nose it off, be done. Basically a blunt front end. Not here on the GS350. Really, as you get down here, it goes out probably another 4 or 5 inches. It really elongates this vehicle where others are really stopping short. Really gives this a nice pronounced front end. Now, what I like with the hood is it really sweeps up the vehicle. Nice architecture here on the outer sides. Blends all the different design cues together quite well. Now, even on the grille itself, it steps out just a hair and sweeps down hard. Nice design through it, and of course this huge open grille that we've all come to love. Lower fascia, and it's all accented with this really bright chrome. Sets off the contrast specifically with this body color and darkened center grille. Now, on the outer side, a lot of zigzag patterns, a lot of sculpturing going on here. Now, one thing you can't find, particularly maybe because of the design and the flares, is a little bit of safety. And what I'm referring to is parking sensors. Now, I tested this vehicle, just pulled up to something really slowly to see if there was anything built in. Was just nothing to alert you. That is somewhat concerning considering this is a nice impact point. The GS350 comes in two versions, the rear-wheel drive as tested or the all-wheel drive model. Also has two options at the four corners, either 18-inch or 19-inch wheel. The 19-inch, what you see here. Now, what we have wrapped in the front is a 235/40, in the rear 265/35. Now, as for ingress, pretty much going to go premium here. Keep the key in your pocket, and what I like is it's really intuitive. Pretty much means you walk right up, have the key in your pocket, it knows you're there, unlocks with ease, and that can happen at any entry point. Basically, the car knows where you are. Now, even better, basically lock it up, put your stuff in there, press right here, it's going to lock it up with ease. And I like the fact that that's really intuitive and of course premium, because if you had some little press buttons, and as we've seen on some other vehicles where there's really not an access point at the rear doors, that just makes it, well, less luxury. Lastly is the fill up area. I always talk about locking this up, and what I like here on the Lexus is it is locked relating to the vehicle. Now, once you unlock the vehicle, basically that's going to pop this open. Even better, if you prefer it, is the cap system. A lot of people really complaining with the capless option. This one going a little bit old school. One of the biggest features on the GS350 has to be here at the back end, really the cargo area that really steps this vehicle up to the next level compared to a lot of other sedans in this size. This vehicle really able to deliver the people and their cargo. Now, first off is their overall design. What you're going to see, nice stout rear end here. One thing I really prefer is really instead of an pointed attached kind of rear spoiler, it wouldn't hurt to really make this one piece. Makes it look a little bit more fluid versus kind of just something that's really glued on right here. Now, otherwise, nice stylized rear taillights that sweep around, kind of mimic that aggressiveness we saw in the front. Now, as for body color, it's going to be all the way around, and again, no backup sensors like the front, no front sensors. sensors, really no backup sensors you can see, but it does of course have a backup camera. But I do prefer on a vehicle like this to really have that audible, really alert noise that really helps you minimize any scrapes and dings. Now what I truly like is what lies beneath here. Now one thing to note, for the handle, traditional going to be here, but since these backup cameras are really taking the traditional spot, you're going to have to come way over here to find the electronic release. Now once you do that, it's going to swing up quite easily, and what you're going to find is around about 18.4 cubic feet of space, really a cavernous area, and most trunks again offering just about this much space, but look how deep and far back it goes. Even better, nice niches on the side, which really comes into play for longer items, specifically golf clubs. Diving into the cargo space just a little bit, one thing to notice is carpeted area. It is removable to help for cleaning, really makes things a lot easier. Also, we'll find 4 anchor points, and as well as this swing down here. This really can help hang some bags or whatever. So in case you do have some fragile items, typically they're going to sling around, but maybe you can hang them here. It does hold up to about 11 pounds. Now what I like to do is look and see what lies beneath here. In some cases, well, there are just no longer any options when it comes to a spare, but not the case here on the GS350. What you're going to find is a nice spare, interestingly adorned in kind of this cream rim color. That's going to scream, hey, I'm driving on a spare. Wouldn't hurt maybe just to make this a silver color. Now the GS350 is the middle sedan in the family lineup with a less powerful and more powerful option on either side of this vehicle. But for this one, what you're going to find is a 3.5 liter V6 engine. It's going to deliver around about 311 horses and 280 foot-pounds of torque. Now it's going to be coupled with either an 8-speed automatic like we had here on the rear-wheel drive, or a 6-speed automatic on the all-wheel drive option. Now when it comes to 0 to 60 numbers, the rear-wheel drive will win out by just a hair, around about 5.7 seconds, with the all-wheel drive losing just a tick. Now as for fuel economy, what you're going to average is between 18 to 28 miles per gallon, somewhere in between depending on your driving habits. Now climbing inside the GS350, we talked about this split personality. That side profile, it seems so regal, low-key mellow, while the grille has that aggressive front end. The inside, again, blends the best of both worlds. First off, what you're going to notice is that F-Sport adorning the hood, the paddle shifters that remind you, hey, you can go 0 to 60 in under 6 seconds. And well, the sport seating, well, actually that might actually be more luxurious. A sport vehicle typically is a lot more bolstered tight and just cramps my style. This one delivering the premium, specifically when it comes to the seats. Now what I like is legroom numbers, around about 42 inches up front, not too shabby in the back, around about 36-37 inches. So definitely going to find decent comfort anywhere you sit, and it starts well with these seats. For the overall dash, you're going to find a nice shallow offering, but a huge display when it comes to the LCD screen front and center. Now one thing to note, it isn't a touchscreen system, mainly because it's well an arm stretch and a half away, but it truly is a widescreen, almost living room-esque TV front and center on the dash. So let's navigate through to see what this screen really delivers. Now to operate the LCD screen, first thing you'll need to do is maybe have a little education when it comes to understanding the system. Now first off, it is a split screen, basically with a huge display on the left, modest little shortcut there on the right. And you'll see those shortcuts vertically aligned. That allows you to really set what's on that screen on that side, while the left side is really for another option. Now you can go to the menu. That's going to give you some nice shortcuts to really fine-tune what you want displayed. Now you can go, what I preferred is to go to the radio, so you can really see your listening enjoyment in full screen, or you can go to other options. One nice one is the climate control. Climate control in any vehicle can be cumbersome, makes it a glance down, but having it right up here can be a little bit more simple to understand, in some cases, what the climate is actually doing. But this huge display really takes just an extra second or two or 12 minutes to really understand how to operate. One thing I always have available is the current time, and that display would be a perfect area for it, but there just isn't a clock on that huge option. Instead, you really have to refer to this analog, which I prefer if they just get rid of these, because some cases it is a little bit difficult to read because the reflection here on the glass, you just can't see the hands. Now if you can remember, there is a clock down here on the gauge, a little bit really low on the gauge cluster, kind of hard to see, but down there nonetheless. Now when it comes to entertainment options, you will find these symmetric knobs for volume and tune select. That one really came in helpful to really dial in your specific setting when it came to your favorite radio station. Now below that is the climate controls, real easy to use. Got dual zones up front, of course. Temperature select, real easy. Fan speed, again, not a big fan of the push button. Prefer maybe just a knob right here in the middle. They could take all these buttons and put it on the knob, but it is fairly easy to use. Now what you're also going to find down low is heated and cooled seats. Now these are tucked right underneath the dash. There's one for both occupants. Now one problem with that is when you display the cup holders down below, this does make it a little bit harder to reach. Even worse, when you put cup holders in this spot, that means you can't even see these at all. If you need to add some sport to your drivability, you can go right through here, basically at the Eco, Normal Mode, and Sport S and S Plus. Now simply dial in specifically. You even do have a snow function, but remember this is rear-wheel drive, so keeping out of the slippery stuff wouldn't hurt. Now if you do want to do the paddle shifters, they're of course here on the 350. For the gauge cluster, you do have a digital readout for your tach and speedometer, really nice and illuminated there in the middle. And of course you do have your entertainment there on the left. Even better, of course, there is a heads-up display. Now during our week-long test drive, we were caught in a huge rainstorm, and the windshield wipers, well, became, well, kind of cumbersome. What I'm referring to is it does have an auto function. That was helpful for the most part. Pretty much when it would rain heavier, it would pick up faster windshield wiping, and when it would slow down, of course it would slow down. Now the problem was I typically liked to set the pace of the windshield wipers, and I just for the life of me couldn't figure it out. Now first off, you do have the auto button here that turns the auto feature on. Then you do have these various settings, but for whatever reason I just could not set it to the speed I wanted. So preferably at least have a way to make this just a hair easier. For say the cruise control, you're not going to find any buttons on the steering wheel, but instead a little toggle switch on the bottom right. Now one thing to note, you may want to memorize its operation, because at night this isn't illuminated, which means you basically have to memorize which way to pull, push, and, well, operate this system. Now on the left side of the dash, you'll find these standard buttons here that helps to dim the gauges. And that comes helpful because everything is somewhat bright at night and you may want to dim it. Now one thing to note is it really only dims the gauge cluster and, well, not that huge screen over there, which I just couldn't find a way to dim, and in some cases just too bright. Now talk about the heated and cooled seats, the buttons and their placement, and basically they're hard to get to should there be items in the cup holders, and well, that might be the name of the game when it comes to this GS350, because another thing to think about is really the center console and, well, what hides beneath it. Well, of course storage, but one other thing is this button here. Now what this is for the rear screen, something I couldn't find the entire week I was in the vehicle. Only did I notice that this actually slid back and forth, did it reveal this button here. So in some cases it helps it look a little bit more regal, but in some cases it just makes it more like a scavenger hunt. Once the center console is slid back, it does rise out of the way, and what you'll find is a shallow tray that can be slid back and forth or simply removed when you need to get to the lower area. Now what you'll find is it's fairly deep, but you do have some connectivity built in. Nice power supply, auxiliary jack, and 2 USB ports. For added comfort for backseat drivers, there is a nice center console for elbow support and storage for cup holders. Now there is a shallow tray in the middle, but one thing to note, there is no connectivity. If your backseat passengers do need to charge up, you can find a nice chargeability station right here, but it is a little bit of old school with the 12-volt being the only option. That does for this edition of Road Warrior and a test drive behind the wheel of the 2018 Lexus GS350, a vehicle that has decent horsepower up here, but even bigger impact when it comes to cargo, and of course that luxury premium you expect when that Lexus is adorning the grille. Now, as always, thank you for watching this edition of Road Warrior. Keep both hands on the wheel and eyes straight ahead.